I liked the idea of a clan forming a hidden cult around a prophet who claimed to know the will of StarClan. It was quite frightening that these cats would so willingly murder one another because they believed that their dead clanmates told them to for the good of ThunderClan. Hello, welcome to another comic review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the Warrior Cats fan comic, The Recruit, by Auroral Meow. And for those of you wondering, no, I will not explain what Warrior Cats is, or all the lore from the books. If I did, we would be here all day. Google will definitely have better explanations and answers than me anyway. In case you are interested in reading this comic afterward, content warnings are animal injury/death, murder, nightmares, blood, mentions of abuse, and cult activity. I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. Since I am more interested in the story, I will not be critiquing the art, as I see amazing artwork as more of a bonus rather than a need for a comic to be considered good. Also, this review will be spoiler free until between these timestamps, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend skipping over that section. Now that those notes are out of the way, let's begin. The plot is as follows. After an encounter with forest cats, a kitten named Fluff decides that she wants to join ThunderClan. Living amongst the clan cats is not easy, especially since the newly named Rainpaw is judged and sneered at for once being an outsider. To make matters worse, ThunderClan is on the brink of war with RiverClan. After Rainpaw witnesses a RiverClan warrior murder their apprentice, however, she suspects that not everything in ThunderClan is as it appears. For the comic itself, it was okay. The artist was young when they wrote the script, so they did the best they could at the time. Looking back, it did have an interesting overall concept. I liked the idea of a clan forming a hidden cult around a prophet who claimed to know the will of StarClan. It was quite frightening that these cats would so willingly murder one another because they believed that their dead clanmates told them to for the good of ThunderClan. My biggest issue with the story was the flow. It started off slow, which was fun at the beginning, but then didn't exactly pick up the pace as it got closer to the middle and then the climax. Instead, a medium pace was kept where there was still plenty of breathing room for the characters, even in dire or tense situations. An example of this was when Rainstone waited until the last minute to meet up with Hawkmask. By giving her too much time to act, it made the situation seem non-urgent. Regardless, the plot was entertaining enough. I did like how well-rounded all the characters were, along with Rainstone slowly becoming more of a threat to the cult. From what I read, the world building didn't stray too much from the canon material. This wasn't bad per se, and it did mean that readers familiar with the Warrior Cats fandom would have no problem jumping into the narrative right away. A detail I did like was the version of ThunderClan's history that the author added. Several years before Rainstone joined the clan, ThunderClan had been led by a cat named Ice Star who enjoyed starting wars and even killing children. He overthrew a rebellion against him, but was later killed by his own deputy, Bright Eyes. Due to how bloodthirsty Ice Star was, the survivors of his rule were worried that another cat like Ice Star could rise to power again. This resulted in the creation of Mudstripe's cult, whose main goal was to eliminate any perceived threats to ThunderClan. I thought it was fantastic how the traumatic history had such a profound impact, even going so far as to affect the other clans like RiverClan. It really showed that the author had thought out that piece of world building. I must admit, I did enjoy Rainstone as the protagonist. She had plenty of good qualities. For instance, when she was first asked to join the clan, Rainstone was hesitant since she was worried that her best friend would be alone without her. Rainstone also knew that her friend most likely wouldn't want to join the clan either due to being scared of fighting. I thought it was sweet that Rainstone wondered how her choice would impact others around her, as most cats in her position would leave dumpster diving behind without a second thought. Another trait I adored was Rainstone's sense of justice, even when it came to other clans. When Hawkmask killed Owlpaw, for instance, Rainstone attacked and yelled at him loud enough to stop the entire battle. This was all despite how she had only met Owlpaw once, and the fact that both Owlpaw and Hawkmask were from RiverClan. That said, Rainstone wasn't the brightest at times, which was a bit annoying. Her interactions with both Nightpelt and Hawkmask got on my nerves, in that Rainstone had a bad habit of not asking regular questions or questioning those around her. When she did, it was often at the worst times, such as being willing to follow Hawkmask alone to an isolated area. Rainstone also confronted Nightpelt about the cult when she was trapped in a hollow tree with him and could have been easily killed. Her survival instincts definitely needed to be sharpened. Rainstone was trying her best though, so I won't fault her too much. After all, it is better to have a protagonist that struggles with challenges versus one who only coasts through life. Poor Gorsfer had it rough in this comic. His first appearance was as an injured, starving kitten who just happened to luckily run into Rainstone when they were both apprentice-aged. Rainstone had to convince the poor kitten to come back to camp and that she wouldn't hurt him. Even after being given food, medicine, and shelter by ThunderClan, he was still quite anxious and had clearly suffered from some past trauma. This also included constant nightmares. Despite all this, he managed to persevere and earn his warrior name. After some prodding by Rainstone later on, Gorsfer did eventually open up to her about what happened. I won't go into it here due to spoilers, but he had been through quite the ordeal. It made it all the more sweet when he considered Rainstone and Brendleheart as close friends that he could trust. As for ThunderClan's leader, Brightstar was a good character. She was quite strict and imposing, but always wanted to protect her clan. One of her first scenes was her actually surrendering to the previous RiverClan leader in order to avoid more casualties. This went further with her facing Minnostar for a one-on-one duel in order to keep the fragile peace between RiverClan and ThunderClan. I also liked that, despite being a decent leader, Brightstar did have her faults. Her biggest flaws were her temper as well as her stubbornness. The best example of this was regarding the problems around the RiverClan medicine cats. When Minnostar asked Brightstar to help train Loonpaw after the RiverClan medicine cat had passed away, Brightstar was hesitant at first, saying that Leaftail was busy with her own apprentice. A few months later, when Minnostar asked for a favor again involving helping sick cats, Brightstar flat out refused. It was good that Brightstar didn't want any of her clanmates to catch the sickness, but at the same time, it was cold that she was so casually okay with letting other cats die. Not to mention that Brightstar also had a history of being a war criminal. I doubt she enjoyed it, but she was willing to follow Ice Star's orders enough times to warrant becoming deputy. This included killing other cats and making no moves to stop Ice Star when he murdered kittens. Although these types of horrible acts stopped when she became leader, Brightstar still had some violent tendencies. Thankfully, she had Leaftail to help balance her out, and they worked quite well as a team, with Leaftail often guiding Brightstar to a more compassionate route. Even though Brightstar was great, Leaftail was ultimately my favorite out of the power couple. It was because although Leaftail was very no-nonsense, she still deeply cared for her clanmates, even if she didn't show it. This was revealed during a time when someone close to Leaftail unexpectedly died. In order to cope with the situation, she threw herself into her work and tried to bury her grief. However, Leaftail's true feelings came out in other ways that were realistic. For example, Leaftail refused to go to the Medicine Cat half-moon meeting and even snapped at Loonpaw for asking. After a frustrating incident trying to train Smallpaw to become her apprentice, Leaftail ended up yelling at the young cat and demanding that she go back to being a warrior as J-Tail's apprentice. When Brightstar confronted Leaftail about this, the Medicine Cat ended up crying on Brightstar's shoulder, finally releasing all those pent-up feelings of anger and shame. It was a touching moment. And now a brief word from our sponsor, me. Yes, this is a self-advertisement. Recently, I have decided to open my Safe for Work art commissions indefinitely. I can draw people, animals, anthros, and full scenes. If you want to order a commission from me, more examples and pricing can be found in the description under the Other Places to Find Me section. As a second announcement, for those who don't know, I recently started putting more designs on my Redbubble shop. I am hoping to get at least a new design done per month, since my internship will become hectic. At my shop, you can find LGBT plus merch, gift for writers, and cute animal designs. They are all available on stickers, shirts, and much, much more. The link is also in the same section below. Thank you for listening, and back to the review. I'm not really sure how to feel about Nightpelt. Except for the involvement in the cult, he was a bland love interest and not all that nice. He participated in the cult despite not believing Mudstripe to be StarClan's prophet, which meant that all the death caused by Nightpelt was done so willingly. Furthermore, Nightpelt also constantly argued with Rainstone, especially when she was growing suspicious of the cult. Nightpelt kept insisting that Rainstone was reading too deep into situations and letting her imagination run wild. To this effect, Rainstone was essentially being gaslit and lied to for the majority of their relationship, especially when it came to Nightpelt's involvement in the murders. It also didn't help that he insulted Rainstone's intelligence as well. To be fair, however, Nightpelt did later apologize to Rainstone for his actions and did treat her better. He also wanted to make up for his actions in any way he could, even if it meant sparing Rainstone against Mudstripe's orders, which could put a target on Nightpelt's back. In terms of examining the other cult members, namely Ivyleaf, Cloudpelt, Ringtail, and Hawkmask, there isn't too much to say about them. However, every member did get their own time in the limelight besides Rainstone, no matter how brief. Ivyleaf first met Rainstone when they were both apprentices, only days after Rainstone had joined ThunderClan. Ivyleaf, Ivypaw then, blamed Rainstone for the death of Robinpaw, Ivyleaf's sister. This was because Ivyleaf saw Rainstone as a potential outside risk to ThunderClan, and that StarClan had punished them for taking Rainstone in by killing Robinpaw. This also resulted in Ivyleaf being terrified of disobeying Mudstripe, who she believed knew the will of StarClan. Unfortunately, Ivyleaf's arc felt rather rushed, as she did end up trusting Rainstone not even halfway into the comic. Cloudpellet encountered Rainstone for the first time after attacking her to defend ThunderClan territory. Although their meeting was unpleasant at first, they quickly warmed up to each other once Rainstone joined the clan. Just like Ivyleaf, Cloudpellet was frightened to go against Mudstripe's orders. The poor Tom was horrified at the thought of killing, but he was more scared of StarClan's wrath. As for Ringtail, his backstory was rather sad. During their stay in another clan, Ringtail revealed to Rainstone that he once had a friend and crush named Shrewtuft. According to Ringtail, Shrewtuft was a kind cat who was awful at hunting. However, after he attempted to kill Brightstar in a fight, Shrewtuft himself was slaughtered. Ringtail noted how he always tried to smile and remain happy in memory of Shrewtuft, which I thought was sweet. Finally, there was Hawkmask, who was a bag of mixed feelings for me. On one hand, Hawkmask joined the cult and followed orders merely because he wanted to, with no deeper motives. This also applied to murdering an apprentice. On the other hand, however, Hawkmask also saved his leader's life and was a key part of Rainstone getting to the bottom of what was happening in ThunderClan. Hawkmask did all this despite knowing he would never be able to return to RiverClan. It made for quite a unique character, and I thought his interactions with Rainstone were all great. Mudstripe was rather weak for an antagonist. Sure, he did order others to kill several cats that he believed were a danger, but if Hawkmask is anything to go by, Mudstripe had no real control over his cult members. Many cats merely followed him because they did not want ThunderClan to fall under a tyrant again, and not because they truly believed that Mudstripe knew the will of StarClan. Mudstripe also did not deal with Rainstone as a proper threat. To his credit, he did have his followers keep an eye on her. That said, when Rainstone began to dig too deep, Mudstripe ordered her to be killed, only to have his followers ignore him. Instead, Nightbelt managed to negotiate with Mudstripe on giving Rainstone another opportunity. This also went hand in hand with Hawkmask's situation, as the Tom ended up fleeing the clan's territory in order to survive. However, since Mudstripe appeared reluctant to kill cats and easily gave Rainstone a second chance, the threat towards Hawkmask lost credibility. It made Mudstripe appear like a weak leader due to not enforcing any consequences. Alright, now onto the spoilers. I'll count to 3 seconds if you want to keep this comic spoiler free. 1, 2, 3. And here we go. The death of Foxpaw was tragic. The medicine cat apprentice had gone to RiverClan in order to help sick cats. From his conversations, Foxpaw quickly bonded with the cats around him and clearly cared about his patients. Unfortunately, he made the massive mistake of being pushy with his care towards an older cat named Swampfur. It irritated me that Foxpaw would not take no for an answer. This went as far as Foxpaw still trying to convince Swampfur to get treatment, even after Foxpaw got scratched by the Elder. All that aside, however, the fact that Foxpaw was killed by Swampfur meant that the apprentice never got the chance to learn from his mistakes while he was alive. Gorsfur being abused as a kitten was horrible. He told Rainstone that he had grown up with cats and a dog in a rather crowded household. One of the cats, who gave orders to the dog, forbid Gorsfur from eating properly and attacked him. Eventually, Gorsfur managed to escape after a nasty fight where he stumbled onto ThunderClan territory. Mudstripe being a massive hypocrite was a bit of a surprise. One of the reasons Mudstripe justified Stormbringer's murder was because the deputy had 2 mates in RiverClan. This made Mudstripe worried that Stormbringer would not take action against RiverClan if the time ever called for it. What Mudstripe neglected to mention, however, was that he himself had a daughter in RiverClan named Leopardstorm. This pointed out just how flawed Mudstripe's mentality was, as he made sure the cult rules did not apply to himself. In terms of the end of the cult, Mudstripe's death was sudden. He had pinned down Rainstone, who was pregnant and had a broken leg at the time. Before he could kill her, however, Rainstone managed to claw his throat with her injured limb. After having all the cult members turn against him, Mudstripe bled out in a lonely demise. Finally, Brightstar deciding to cover up the cult made the story take on a darker tone. From the information on the last few pages, Brightstar had potentially been aware of the cult this entire time, but did not lift a claw to stop it. Instead, the leader decided to let the information regarding Mudstripe's cult die with him, and erasing any wrongdoing Brightstar may have been accused of had the cult's actions come to light. Even worse, Brightstar was the one who had planted the idea for the cult in Mudstripe's head to begin with. It was a shocking twist. Overall, I give this comic 3 out of 5 stars. This was a great first comic. The plot needed some work, but the characters were pretty solid and entertaining. There was also plenty of creativity in the story as well, and I could tell the artist was having fun while writing it. I hope Ariel will keep improving their craft and wish them the best of luck on their comic making journey.